Okay, so we said 4, we've got 2. This next question, here's this one, and this one definitely touches where we live right now and the circumstances specifically with COVID-19. It says, what are your thoughts on all of this going on? Is this biblical? I'm nervous about it, but I know that God is bigger than any of this. I know that He will take care of us, but it sure is stressful right now. That's a pretty honest and timely question. What would you respond?
Life itself is stressful, and it has been for a long time. We're facing a particular problem in this, but is it biblical? Yes. Just the verse you quoted, in this world you will have tribulation. And we're certainly having it from a number of different directions. I sent out a text this week, and I just want to read it to you. I think it best addresses God's plan as opposed to us knowing all the details of God's plan. So here's the truth about what God says. I must always remember that God is not only holy, He is meticulous. That means detailed. God determines for me a specific role of which I may not even be aware in His kingdom. And He relentlessly moves me forward until He reaches the place where I am perfectly placed with Him. Since I may not know where that place is, I may be in a series of meaningless circles, zigs, or zags, and I think we have plenty of that going on right now. Sometimes as if only the wind is in control. Forget that. God slowly draws us to His goal, His zenith, where the perfection will be just as complete here as up there. When I finally reach my goal and look back, I will be amazed to discover what inconsequential, minute, and at times seemingly extraneous things God used to bring me on my way. The things that so easily irritated me, that caused tedious delays, and that provoked me to temper and irritability were the very things that became my best teacher. And I can't put it in better words than that. And there again, it's that knowing that God's plan is better than my plan anyway. If we can trust a God who allowed His own Son to suffer and die so that we can have a relationship with Him, I know, as you being my son, there's not anything I wouldn't try to save the pain, the heartache, the hard things. And yet we have a God that chose that for His Son so that He can have a relationship with us like that. And I just believe that that's the heart I want to follow. It's the heart I trust, especially in uncertain times, because there's a certainty to the gospel. There's a certainty to the cross. There's a certainty to our Savior, Jesus Christ. And I devote my full attention. My heart would be for you guys. Just devote your full attention to that story. And we will be okay in the rest of the story.
Yeah, while we were just reading these questions and praying through these questions, and one of the dynamics that I thought of was when Jesus was asked, can you sum up the law? What is the big deal with God? And He boiled it down, in that passage that He's asked, and the response that was given, it was, listen, the first commandment is that you would love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And Jesus said the second is like it, that you would love your neighbor as yourself. So my thoughts surrounding the circumstances we're in with COVID and just walking through an immense amount of change, an immense amount of uncertainty, and that can legitimately be described as crisis. Sometimes it's when everything seems so complicated, and sometimes when everything seems so harried. I think it's best to simplify and get it back down. And when Jesus was asked that, He said, I got 2 things for you. You need to love God and give Him everything. And you need to take care of the people around you. You got to love your neighbor. Those 2 things are so close to God's heart that that's what He would essentially boil it all down to. So I think as believers, as we navigate this COVID pandemic, that the onus is on us to be walking in faith and trusting our God, loving our God with everything we have, heart, soul, mind, strength, all of it. But also then to be loving our neighbors as ourselves, not to be unwise and foolish or shouting from the rooftops that we trust God so much that we're still going to gather and do church, or we're still going to do these other things. No, we need to be loving each other by protecting each other, by making sure that we're not, like breaking every mandate that our government lays out there. And so there are practical ways that I think we just need to simplify it down to those things. I'm going to trust God. I'm going to love God. And I'm going to love the people around me and do the things I know I need to do to serve them well through this time. Whether that's our family, friends, neighbors, everybody. The people in line at the grocery store who, I'm going to honor the 6-foot mark on the floor because I don't want them uncomfortable that maybe they think I'm too close or not, whether I trust God for my health and safety or theirs or not. And so those things for me address my thoughts on where we're at and how to navigate through some of this. I was reminded a little bit when you asked if it's biblical about Jesus in Matthew 24, and I would highly recommend reading that passage there when he's talking about the end, because everybody right now has a conspiracy theory about how this all applies and what our message should be as believers. Are we supposed to be saying that this is how Jesus is coming back, and there's all these end times conversations about one world governments and all these various things. And I know it's easy for us as believers to try to get caught up into that, but Jesus in Matthew 24, his perspective was, listen, you know the times and the seasons, but no man knows the day or the hour. And I would encourage you as believers as well not to get too caught up in some of these, the specific questions about what is this going to mean and impact, and is this a specific fulfillment of prophecy? My honest answer for all of those right now is I don't know. But I do know that we're walking through something that our planet has never walked through before, that we can see the season in a way that it is so clear that what Jesus talked about as birth pains, as the time is coming soon in Matthew 24, I think that's something we should all be aware of right now. And we should be watching, and we should be waiting, and we should be trusting the Lord and loving our neighbors and continuing to carry out the message of the gospel, the truth of the gospel in our daily lives. So absolutely, it's biblical, I agree. And it's definitely a unique circumstance for us to walk through right now. So,
well, and I've always kind of looked at it like, if you were lost in the wilderness, and there's wilderness aspects to this, what you want is a compass.
yeah.
Which way is north? I may not know all the other answers about how soon I'll get out of this, how it's going to look, but I know true north is Jesus Christ. And that's the direction I'm going to go. And amongst all the other plans, that's the plan that God did tell us about and say, here it is, go north. And so that would be my encouragement to you is there's one direction we do know and we do have hope in, and that would be that.
And kind of like we talked about with the other questioner, the heart that's behind that kind of question is, I want to know this, where are we biblically, and what is God's truth for this circumstance? I think that it's by itself, like, props to you. You should be encouraged for having that kind of perspective to ask that kind of question. So I love that even in the questions that we're getting, you can see this heart to be in line with the Lord and to be closer to the Lord. And these questions are great in that sense. So I really appreciate that from all of you.